You are deep in an Ice Age forest. The sun is going down. The temperature is dropping incredibly fast. You spin around, and every single tree looks exactly the same. The wind starts to howl, and you realize you have absolutely no idea which way is home. Today, if you get lost, you just pull out your phone, open a map, and follow the little blue dot. But 30,000 years ago, taking one wrong turn meant you were dead. There were no rescue helicopters. There were no street signs. If you walked in the wrong direction as the sun set, the freezing cold or the predators circling in the dark would take you. So, how did they survive? How did ancient humans cross entire frozen continents, hunt giant animals for miles, and always find their way back to a tiny, hidden cave without ever using a map or a compass? We usually picture ancient humans as people who just wandered around aimlessly, chasing animals until they got lucky and stumbled upon a safe place to sleep. That picture is a complete lie. Wandering meant death. Ancient humans carried an invisible, highly advanced map inside their heads. A system so brilliant and accurate that it rivaled modern GPS. If they didn't have this secret system, our entire species would have vanished in the woods. I'm going to show you exactly how they navigated the terrifying prehistoric world. Let's see if your brain still has the ancient survival skills to make it out alive. It is time for your first survival game. Imagine you are an Ice Age hunter. You chased a deer for 3 hours, and now you are standing in the middle of a massive, flat, grassy plain called the Mammoth Steppe. It is completely flat in every direction. There are no mountains to use as a landmark. A thick fog rolls in, completely covering the sky. You cannot see the sun. You need to walk straight north to get back to your tribe before nightfall. How do you walk in a perfectly straight line when you can't see the sky and everything looks the same? Do you pick option A, close your eyes, picture the camp, and trust your gut feeling? Option B, look down at the ground and study the grass? Or option C, throw a stick in the air and walk whichever way it points? If you picked option A, trusting your gut, you are dead. Humans have a weird glitch in our brains. If we don't have a visual landmark, we naturally walk in circles. Without realizing it, one of your legs takes slightly longer strides than the other. If you try to walk straight in a fog, you will actually walk in a giant, useless circle until you freeze. If you picked option C, the stick, you are just guessing. You are also dead. But if you picked option B, looking at the grass, you survive. Ancient humans used a genius trick to read the invisible world. Out on the Mammoth Steppe, the wind almost always blew fiercely from one specific direction. Over time, that constant wind would bend the grass and carve permanent, frozen ripples into the snow. These lines in the snow and dirt acted like giant, invisible arrows pointing across the entire continent. Even in a blinding fog, an ancient human could look at the angle of the frozen snow beneath their feet and know exactly which way was north, south, east, or west. They didn't just look at the world, they read it like a book. But reading the dirt was only the beginning. To truly conquer the ancient world, early humans had to look up. When the fog cleared, the sky became the ultimate ancient supercomputer. Today, we barely look at the stars because city lights block them out. But to an ancient human, the night sky was a glowing, rotating compass. They memorized exactly how the constellations moved. They knew that while all the other stars spun around the sky, there was a specific point in the sky that stayed perfectly still. By finding that fixed point, they could instantly align themselves in the pitch black. But what about the daytime? You can't see the stars when the sun is out. Let's do another scenario. You are lost in a dense jungle. The trees are so thick you can barely see the sky, but you can see a few rays of sunlight poking through the leaves. You know your camp is to the east. Here is the problem. The sun moves across the sky all day. If you just follow the sun, your direction will change every hour, and you will end up walking in a giant curve. How do you use a moving sun to walk in a straight line? Ancient humans used a technique that scientists call dead reckoning. It sounds like a pirate term, but it is actually a biological superpower. Dead reckoning is the ability to constantly track your own speed, your own direction, and the time of day, all inside your head, without ever looking at a clock. An ancient human would look at the sun and think, "The sun is low on my right side. That means it is morning, and I am facing north." 2 hours later, they would subconsciously adjust their brain. The sun is now higher and slightly behind me, so to keep walking north, I need to shift my path slightly. They were doing high-level geometry and physics in their heads every single second of the day, completely by instinct. They didn't need a smartwatch to track their steps. Their brain kept a running tally of exactly how fast they were walking and exactly how many degrees they had turned. They were their own GPS satellites. But even with the stars, the snow, and the sun, there was one massive problem that every ancient human faced. What happens when you need to travel to a place you have never been before? What happens when a massive drought hits, all the animals leave, and your tribe has to migrate hundreds of miles across unknown land to find a new home? You can't use your internal map if you have never seen the land. This is where prehistoric humans invented something absolutely mind-blowing. Since they didn't have pen and paper to draw a map, they had to put the map somewhere else. Where do you store a map of an entire continent if you can't write it down? You sing it. This is the secret weapon that saved the human race. Long before written history, ancient humans created songlines. A songline is a song or a story that doubles as a highly detailed, life-saving map. Think about how easily you can memorize the lyrics to your favorite song, even if you haven't heard it in years. Music sticks in the human brain like glue. Ancient people realized this, so they took the directions for how to cross a mountain range and turned them into a campfire story. The elders of the tribe would sit around the fire and tell a thrilling story about a mythical giant bear being chased by a hunter. But it wasn't just a story for fun. The story would say, the bear ran past the 3 jagged rocks, crossed the river where the water moves backward, and hid in the cave shaped like a skull. To a child, it's just an awesome monster story. But to a hunter, it is a perfect set of GPS instructions. The 3 jagged rocks is a landmark. The river that moves backward is an eddy current. The skull cave is the destination. By memorizing the song, an ancient human could walk hundreds of miles into totally unknown territory and know exactly where to turn, where to find hidden water, and where to hide from danger, all because they were singing the map in their head. If you forgot the lyrics, you died. This meant that the elders of the tribe, the grandparents who knew all the oldest songs, were the most valuable people on Earth. They were walking libraries. They were the Google Maps of the Ice Age. Stop and feel that for a second. Every story your ancestors ever told, every song they ever sang around a fire, wasn't just entertainment. It was a lifeline. It was a carefully coded message designed to keep their grandchildren from freezing to death in the dark. If realizing that the first songs were actually ancient survival maps gives you chills, do me one small favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. This channel exists to uncover the hidden superpowers of the human race, and I want you here for the rest of the journey. Now, stay with me, because we haven't even talked about the craziest navigation trick of all. What happens when your eyes completely fail you? Time for your final survival test. It is the middle of the night. There is no moon. The fog is so thick you can't even see your own hand in front of your face. You are completely blind in the dark. You are dying of thirst, and you need to find water immediately. How do you find a river you cannot see? You have to use the ancient superpower of the senses. You might think humans have terrible hearing and a terrible sense of smell compared to dogs or wolves. And today, you are right. But prehistoric humans were built differently. Because they lived completely in nature, their senses were dialed up to the absolute maximum. If they couldn't see the river, they could hear it. But they didn't just listen for splashing water. They listened for the echoes of the landscape. A dense forest sounds different than an open valley. The wind whistles differently when it hits a solid rock wall versus when it blows through thin trees. By simply closing their eyes and listening to how sound bounced off the world around them, ancient humans could build a 3D map of the environment in their brains. It was an ancient version of echolocation! And if they couldn't hear the water, they smelled it. Water itself doesn't have a strong smell, but the things around it do. Ancient humans could smell the damp earth, the specific types of green plants that only grow near rivers, and the concentrated smell of animals gathering to drink. They could literally sniff their way to survival in the pitch black. So, why can't we do this today? Why do we get lost in our own neighborhoods if our phones die? This is where the story gets a little scary. It turns out, relying on technology is physically changing the shape of the human brain. Deep inside your brain, there is a tiny, seahorse-shaped structure called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the part of the brain that handles spatial memory. It is your biological GPS chip. Scientists have studied the brains of modern people who still rely on memory to navigate, like taxi drivers in London who have to memorize 25,000 streets without using a screen. When they scanned the taxi drivers' brains, they found that their hippocampus was physically larger and thicker than a normal person's. Their brain grew because they exercised their internal map. Now, imagine the brain of an ancient human who spent their entire life mapping thousands of miles of wilderness, memorizing the stars, reading the wind, and singing the map songs. Their hippocampus would have been incredibly powerful. But today, we stare at a blue dot on a screen. We let a machine tell us when to turn left and when to turn right. Because we stopped using our internal map, scientists warn that our spatial memory is shrinking. We have outsourced our ancient superpower to our cell phones. We traded the stars, the wind, and the songlines for a glowing rectangle. So, the next time your phone dies and you feel that sudden spike of panic because you don't know which way is north, take a deep breath. Look at the sky. Look at the shadows on the ground. Listen to the wind. Somewhere deep inside your DNA, the ancient map is still there. You just have to remember how to read it. But if you think navigating the Ice Age was terrifying, you have no idea what ancient humans had to do when they finally found a place to sleep. Finding the cave was only half the battle. Surviving what was already living inside the cave was the real nightmare. I've got that terrifying story ready for you right now, right on your screen. Click the video, and let's see if you can survive the night. I'll see you there.